Let me tell you something. There's a power in a man who walks this world with no ego, a power most people will never understand. See, most people, they're trapped by their need to be right, to be admired, to prove themselves to people who don't even matter. A man with no ego possesses a level of strength that most will never understand. Society often confuses arrogance with confidence, mistaking loudness for power. But true strength isn't found in proving yourself to others. It's found in the quiet assurance of knowing who you are. When a man no longer feels the need to defend his worth or demand recognition, he unlocks a level of inner power that makes him unstoppable. He doesn't chase validation because he doesn't need it. He doesn't get rattled by criticism because his confidence isn't built on the fragile foundation of external approval. This kind of man walks into a room and commands respect without ever having to ask for it. People can sense when someone is grounded, when they move through life with an unshakable presence. He doesn't rely on arrogance to establish his value. He lets his character do that for him. His humility doesn't make him weak. It makes him untouchable. He doesn't react emotionally to challenges or let his pride dictate his decisions. Instead, he observes, he listens, and he responds with clarity and purpose. Without ego, there is no need for defensiveness. A man like this isn't afraid to admit when he's wrong because his self-worth isn't attached to being right. He values truth over his own pride, and that makes him powerful beyond measure. He doesn't waste energy in meaningless battles to protect his image. He understands that strength is found in growth, and growth only happens when you can acknowledge your flaws without feeling attacked. This mindset allows him to build deeper, more meaningful relationships. People trust him because they know he isn't playing a game or operating from insecurity. He is secure enough in himself to lift others up rather than tearing them down to elevate his own status. His humility allows him to learn from everyone, regardless of their position or experience. He doesn't see himself as above anyone, and because of that, he continues to evolve. A man without ego is also resilient. He doesn't let failure define him, nor does he allow success to inflate his sense of self. He stays grounded, focused, and committed to his path. No amount of external praise or criticism can shake him because his foundation is built on something much stronger than public perception. A man without ego approaches life with an open mind, always willing to learn rather than feeling the need to defend himself. Most people operate from a place of pride, constantly justifying their actions, explaining their failures, or making excuses for their shortcomings. But the man with no ego doesn't waste his time in self-defense. He knows that the moment he stops learning, he stops growing. Instead of resisting feedback, he welcomes it. He sees every piece of criticism, every lesson, every challenge as an opportunity to sharpen himself. When someone challenges his perspective, he doesn't immediately react with anger or stubbornness. He listens, he considers, he evaluates whether there is truth in what is being said. He understands that wisdom isn't about always being right. It's about constantly seeking the right answer. If he is wrong, he admits it and adjusts. He doesn't cling to outdated beliefs or hold on to a position just to protect his pride. He is more committed to growth than he is to his own ego. This kind of man also surrounds himself with people who push him to be better. He isn't intimidated by those who know more than him or have greater experience. He seeks out mentors, studies successful people, and absorbs knowledge wherever he can find it. His mind is open, always searching for new ideas and better ways to approach life. He understands that true intelligence isn't about proving how much he knows. It's about being wise enough to recognize how much there is still to learn. He also applies this mindset to failure. When things don't go as planned, he doesn't make excuses or shift blame. He takes full ownership of his mistakes and learns from them. Instead of viewing failure as a personal attack, he sees it as feedback, a necessary part of progress. Because he isn't clouded by ego, he can assess his weaknesses honestly and work on them without shame. His relationships benefit from this mindset as well. He doesn't argue to win, he communicates to understand. He doesn't let pride ruin opportunities for connection. If he hurts someone, he apologizes sincerely. If someone disagrees with him, he listens with the intent to learn rather than to prove a point. He values growth more than being seen as the smartest or most dominant person in the room. A man without ego understands that true respect is never demanded. It is earned through actions, character, and consistency. Many people seek recognition, craving applause and admiration from others. They want to be seen as important, powerful, or successful, often chasing validation through status, material wealth, or social approval. But a man who has let go of his ego knows that none of these things define real respect. He doesn't waste his energy trying to impress people because he understands that true respect comes from who he is, not from how others perceive him. He leads by example, not by force. He doesn't need to talk about his accomplishments or demand appreciation because his presence alone commands respect. He operates with integrity, doing the right thing even when no one is watching. He keeps his word, follows through on his commitments, and treats people with fairness and decency. People respect him because he is reliable, not because he seeks their approval. He is not swayed by the opinions of others because he knows that external validation is fleeting. This kind of man does not allow his ego to make decisions for him. He doesn't feel the need to prove himself in every situation. He understands that arguing for recognition or constantly seeking to be acknowledged is a sign of insecurity, not strength. Instead of trying to dominate conversations or assert his superiority, he listens. He values the perspectives of others and gives credit where it is due. His confidence is quiet but undeniable. He also understands the difference between fear-based respect and genuine admiration. Some people try to force others to respect them through intimidation, authority, or manipulation, but that kind of respect is weak. It disappears the moment power is lost. True respect comes from character, from the way a man carries himself and treats those around him. People don't respect him because they are afraid of him. They respect him because they trust him. They know he stands on a solid foundation of principles that do not waver under pressure. His relationships are deeper and more meaningful because they are not built on status or ego. He doesn't seek approval, so he doesn't have to pretend to be someone he's not. The people in his life respect him because they see his authenticity, his consistency, and his ability to stand firm without arrogance. A man without ego does not let his emotions control him. He understands that reacting impulsively, driven by pride or insecurity, only leads to regret. Instead of letting anger, frustration, or the need to prove a point dictate his actions, he remains composed. He knows that true strength lies in emotional discipline, the ability to think clearly, act intentionally, and not be swayed by fleeting feelings. When faced with criticism, he does not take it personally. He does not allow his pride to make him defensive or blind to the truth. Instead of reacting with frustration or shutting down, he listens, evaluates, and decides if there is something valuable to take from the situation. He does not waste energy being offended because he understands that emotions, when unchecked, can cloud judgment. Rather than allowing his feelings to dictate his behavior, he channels them into something productive. In conflict, he remains calm. He does not let ego escalate situations that could be handled with patience and understanding. He does not raise his voice to assert dominance or argue just to be right. He recognizes that reacting emotionally often weakens his position rather than strengthening it. Instead of engaging in unnecessary battles to protect his pride, he focuses on resolving issues with wisdom and logic. Because he is in control of his emotions, he does not let external circumstances dictate his mood. He does not allow the opinions of others to shake his confidence or determine his worth. He does not seek validation, nor does he crumble under criticism. He moves through life with an inner stability that cannot be easily disturbed. When faced with setbacks, he does not panic or fall into self-pity. He acknowledges his emotions, but does not let them overpower his ability to move forward. This level of control extends to his relationships. He does not let jealousy, resentment, or insecurity create unnecessary problems. He does not need constant reassurance or attention to feel valuable. He gives without expecting in return and loves without possession. His emotional discipline allows him to navigate relationships with clarity, avoiding the toxic cycles that come from ego-driven reactions. He understands that mastering his emotions does not mean suppressing them. He acknowledges them, learns from them, and uses them as a tool rather than a weakness. He is not easily provoked, not easily shaken, and not easily controlled by anything outside himself. A man without ego does not fear failure because he does not tie his identity to his successes or mistakes. Most people avoid failure at all costs, afraid of what it will say about them, afraid of how others will perceive them. Their ego keeps them from taking risks because they cannot handle the idea of being wrong, looking weak, or falling short. But the man who has removed his ego sees failure differently. He understands that failure is not a reflection of his worth, but a necessary step toward growth. He does not make excuses when he falls short. He does not shift blame to protect his pride. Instead, he takes full ownership of his actions, understanding that real growth only happens when a person is willing to acknowledge their mistakes. He does not waste time feeling sorry for himself because he knows self-pity accomplishes nothing. Rather than letting failure defeat him, he studies it, learns from it, and applies those lessons to improve. Every failure is data, a chance to refine his approach, sharpen his skills, and become better than before. Because he is not driven by ego, he does not let embarrassment or judgment from others stop him. He understands that people who mock failure are usually the ones too afraid to try anything meaningful themselves. He does not concern himself with their opinions. He stays focused on his path, knowing that every successful person in history has failed often and at times publicly. He embraces failure as a natural part of achieving anything great. This mindset allows him to take bold action. He does not hesitate, overthink, or wait for the perfect moment. He understands that progress comes from doing, adjusting, and doing again. He does not need to be perfect because he knows perfection is an illusion. His confidence is not in never failing, but in his ability to get back up every time he does. His resilience makes him unstoppable. Where others quit, he perseveres. Where others let failure define them, he uses it as fuel. He does not fear looking foolish, making mistakes, or starting over. His ego does not stand in the way of his progress, so he continues to push forward, undeterred by obstacles or setbacks. He understands that every failure brings him closer to success. A man without ego moves with purpose, not for validation. He does not wake up every day seeking approval or chasing recognition. His actions are not driven by the need to impress others, but by a deep internal drive to fulfill his vision. He knows exactly what he wants, and he commits himself fully to the journey, regardless of who is watching. While others seek applause, he seeks progress. While others crave attention, he focuses on impact. He does not waste time trying to prove himself to people who do not matter. He understands that external validation is fleeting, and he refuses to let his self-worth be dictated by opinions, likes, or applause. He does not need recognition to stay motivated because his fire comes from within. His confidence is not built on the approval of others, and because of that, it cannot be taken away. He does not allow distractions, criticism, or doubt from the outside world to pull him away from his mission. His decisions are rooted in purpose, not popularity. He does not follow trends or do things simply because they will get attention. He is not controlled by what people expect of him. Instead, he carves his own path, making choices that align with his values, his principles, and his long-term goals. He does not seek shortcuts or the easy way out because he is not in this for temporary success. He is building something real, something lasting. Because he does not chase validation, he does not hesitate to take necessary risks. He is not afraid of judgment, failure, or rejection because none of those things define him. He is willing to walk alone if it means staying true to himself. He does not need a crowd to feel strong. His strength comes from knowing he is doing what he was meant to do. His relationships are genuine because they are not built on ego. He does not surround himself with people just to feel important. He values authenticity over flattery and connection over status. He does not manipulate, exaggerate, or pretend to be something he is not. The people in his life respect him because they know he is real, that his words and actions aligned. He does not seek to be admired, he seeks to be effective.